Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Tim here. You like that track in the beginning, don't you? Yeah. Good buddy of mine, Joshki, from the band Gold Stars, reached out to me and said, hey, I really believe in what you're doing. I want to give you an intro. So I said, hell yeah, absolutely. So shout out to Joshki. I'll give you a little bit more information on him in a bit towards the end of the show. But thank you so much. Really makes me happy to see that you all believe in what I'm doing just like I do. So I think that's dope. And again, thanks for Joshki and Glow Stars for that awesome intro. Now, it kind of brings to mind, guys, a few different things. There isn't too much that I want to talk about today, but there are two topics that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about that I did want to bring up that kind of fell right in my lap this morning. First things first, apologies, guys. If you know me personally or if you've been listening for a while, you know that I am an amateur podcaster. I record in my kitchen. I do not have a professional studio. I do not have professional equipment, and I work with what I have. One of the downsides of not being in a professional studio is you kind of deal with some background noise that you can't control. Things like the fridge, things like the neighborhood going on, cars driving by, etc., etc. Now, like I mentioned earlier in a previous episode, I live on apartment row. I call it apartment row because there are literally only two traditional houses on the whole block. Everything else is either an apartment complex or a duplex. Literally nothing but apartments here. And as a result, there are large bodies of grass everywhere. And a lot of these companies bring out professional landscapers, I guess is the right word to use. And they come out and mow the lawn with their professional equipment. And it's very, very loud. So it looks nice when it's done, but it ruins my podcast almost, you know. So I do apologize about that. And, the next block over, there's a cemetery, very grim, I know. But there's a cemetery, and in that cemetery, they obviously have a large body of land, large body of grass, and they use professional lawnmowers and landscaping companies to come out and mow the lawn. Kind of grows on you, but I want them to cut it out. See what I did there? Anyway, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So I know there may be some issues having a professional studio as well. But I tell you what, from this side of the gate, it damn sure does look nicer. So hopefully, one day be in a professional studio. Otherwise, until then, I'll work with what I got. Thank you for sticking around another week, guys. Episode 24. Who would have thought? 24. A few things to talk about today. Like I said, not many, but a few things. I want to cover one of the most important things because it affects you all directly. The ITIYL gift card giveaway. To celebrate, if you listened to last week's episode, to celebrate 1,000 downloads, over 1,000 downloads. We're actually almost at 1,100 already. Way to go, guys. Good work. I do an ITIYL gift card giveaway. $20 gift card to anywhere you like. The popular choice seems to be Amazon for obvious reasons. But $20 gift card to whatever or wherever you like, just for supporting the show and being part of that 1,000 download mark. And all you got to do is hit me up on the various different, media outlets. You'll see them all listed in the description below. Whether you're listening on, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, regardless of where you're listening, you'll see it in the description below. ITIYL gift card giveaway. All you got to do is reach out to me on the various different outlets, Twitter, Instagram, email into the show, whatever your preference is. Tell me what your favorite episode is and why. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be intricate. Although I do encourage that. I like to read those on air, and I like to read those in my personal time as well. I read a lot of you guys' feedback in my personal time, and even though I may not talk about it all the time, I do listen. The show's called I'll Talk If You'll Listen for a reason, and it works both ways. So tell me what your favorite episode is and why. I believe, so my friend, Dylan, who was having a conversation with his buddy about, the whole gaming culture and the whole, women in particular, when it comes to gaming. I believe that was discussed on episode 11, if I'm not mistaken. Just came up in casual conversation, and then he reached out to me and told me how appreciative he was for the topic because it was definitely something that was near and dear to his heart. So if you all have a topic near and dear to your heart, or if you all have an episode that you particularly enjoyed more so than others, hit me up, text me, DM me, do whatever you got to do to let me know to participate in an ITIYL gift card giveaway. I'm going to leave this open for a few weeks, guys, just to give you all a chance to get your entry in. Again, this is a non-paid drawing. You don't have to pay to participate. All you got to do is participate. That's it. And keep in mind that, the more the better. It makes it a little bit more exciting, and I get to read you guys' comments. So stop what you're doing right now. If you didn't already, all you got to do is just hit me up on the various different methods and let me know what your favorite episode is and why. And then once you do that, you can finish listening. I give you permission to finish listening after you treat yourself to an entry for a $20 gift card giveaway. Moving on to the Patreon. Patreon's doing pretty well, guys. Thank you so much. I'm even closer to that new microphone. I can't wait to get there. And I appreciate all of my patrons. As a reward, if you are a patron, you get an extra entry into the ITIYL gift card giveaway. You also get to, get on that Facebook exclusive group for that exclusive content, behind the scenes content, exclusive videos, things like that. I really appreciate all of the support so far. And there is an intro video on my Patreon page, so check that out if you want to get a better understanding on what Patreon is and how it supports me. And you could support $1 a month, you could support $100 a month, you could support $1 million a month. Whatever is in your budget and whatever you're willing to give, I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Well, to dive into this week's topics. And these are topics that are very near and dear to me. And I did briefly speak about them on a previous episode, but just to dive into more detail about it, one in particular is things that you're passionate about. I'm really passionate about the podcast, everyone, and it puts a huge smile on my face when I see how many lives it impacts when people hit me up and say, hey, I'm really proud of you. Hey, this means a lot. Hey, this is a really important topic that needs to be discussed. And these are people from different generations. These are people from different walks of life, different lifestyles, different cultural backgrounds, different race backgrounds. And I really appreciate it. I really do. And it got me to thinking, like, hey, if you have somebody in your corner supporting whatever it is that you're passionate about, those are the people that you want to keep around. And remember, there's more than a way to support the people that you care about. It doesn't always have to be a monetary donation. It could be a good job. It could be a pat on the back. It could be a thank you. It could be a letter. It could be a video. It could be a picture. It could be a phone call. It could be a text message. It could be anything. If the person's truly passionate about it and their heart is in the right place and they're not greedy, it's not a cash grab. They're not in it for the money. They'll truly, genuinely thank you. If it's, there's a little bit more pressure if it's their source of income. Like, obviously, if I was doing this full time, of course, there'd be a little bit more pressure into, have the money coming in. But generally speaking, obviously, if the person's very passionate about it, they're going to take whatever they can get when it comes to gratitude because they genuinely appreciate it. So tell you what, reach out to that small business owner, reach out to that entrepreneur, reach out to that amateur photographer, reach out to that person who is in your life, who is doing something that they're passionate about. And believe you me, you'll definitely see where their heart is at if you just say, hey, you're doing a good job, and they genuinely appreciate that. It goes a long way. It goes further than you think. Another thing I want to talk about, and I'll actually be doing a video about this Sunday via Facebook Live. So if you listen to me and you are a friend on Facebook, definitely tune in Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're not my friend on Facebook, no worries. The video will be public. So I don't know if you'll be able to participate live while the video is live, but you will be able to view the video afterwards once it's archived and saved to my Facebook timeline. So definitely check that out. I would love to get your feedback. The video I did last week on Sunday, this past Sunday, or this week rather, on Sunday, involved the usage of certain vocabulary, in particular the N-word. And I have my good buddy Ryan on. Ryan was featured on the show twice. He was featured on episode 19. He was also featured on episode 12, I believe it was. And Ryan is a very passionate person, and he and I have passionate discussions and topics all of the time. As you all know, if you've been listening for a while, Ryan actually has a huge impact on the show getting started in the first place, because a lot of what I talk about, or a lot of what I would talk about on the show, sparked with Ryan and I going to a local pub, just having local discussions and topics on current events. And, after that stopped, I used the podcast as an outlet to do that. So Ryan was featured on my video on Sunday. Again, the video is public. It's on my Facebook timeline. So even if we're not friends, you can just search Tim Brooks and go and check it out. But we just discussed usage of the N-word in particular, and a lot of different, topics of discussion within that topic, and a lot of different opinions resulted, and the comment section went nuts. So I definitely encourage you all to look at the video, not to give me any fame or glory or to increase the view count, but just because I think it's an intelligent, mature conversation that needs to be had. And I encourage you all to check it out. It can almost be treated like a podcast, if you will, like an episode of the show. Just have it, face down and just listen. You don't have to watch it. Not much going on in the video, but great audio content. So I encourage you all to watch that. But a very unique and particular thing happened as a result of being on the podcast, as a result of doing the video. And that was the feedback that I got from everyone who disagreed with my point. Now, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not everyone is entitled to their own facts. And what that means is you can't really change a fact just because you don't like it. You can choose to overlook a fact if you don't like it, but you can't disregard the fact just because you don't like it. It's there, whether you like it or not. And I brought up some pretty tough talking points. I won't spend too much time talking about it because it'll take away from the integrity of the video. And I definitely want you to go check out the video. But I gave a particular viewpoint and opinion on the N-word in particular and its history, especially the history that's not commonly known about the word and its origins. And I got some feedback from some people who called me. I got called an Uncle Tom. I got called, I was called anti-black. A few people hit me up and they weren't proud or happy about what I had to say. And first things first, obviously I said, well, hey, I appreciate your feedback because it, gives me more insight into how people feel about it, and knowledge is power. But at the same time, I kind of thought like, wow, if I had kind of got up and was a company man and kind of voiced a popular opinion and just kind of said what everybody wanted to say, these people would be in my corner. But just because I said something that they disliked, it was definitely like, hey, I look at you differently now, or hey, I view you differently now. And I want to be clear, that's their right. Before you get mad and upset, hey, look, that's their right. They have a right to do that. Just like you're listening to this podcast and you have a right to judge that person. You don't even know them, but that's your right. You can do that. I hate when people try to say people don't have the right to judge. Yes, we do. We absolutely do. Judge is just a different word of saying having an opinion. If someone says, hey, my opinion is, no one looks at it. But if you use the word judge, you're like, oh, you don't have the right to judge me. Yes, I do. Okay. So, hey, look, you have a right to judge them. They have a right to judge me. It is what it is. But it kind of got me to thinking, especially within the black community, my black peers, is if you don't agree with the black side, you're automatically anti-black. And I don't know where that comes from or why that is. And it kind of got me thinking about another topic that I wanted to discuss. And that's interracial dating. So this upcoming video will be surrounding interracial dating. I'm going to have a ton of you on talking about your experiences when it comes to interracial dating. And I'm in an interracial relationship myself. And I don't talk about my relationship often for several reasons. But the biggest reason is the fewer people who kind of stick their nose in your relationship, the fewer people you'll get with bad intentions who try to, gossip or screw things up. So I don't talk about my relationship often, for many reasons, but that's one reason in particular. You realize that the fewer people who know about certain situations, the fewer people can, down talk it or be negative about it. So don't talk about my relationship often, but I am in an interracial relationship, and there are pros and cons. There are always pros and cons. Pros and cons to being in an interracial relationship. And some of the hurdles that come across are certain cultural gaps. For example, the person I'm in a relationship with, she hasn't lived in an urban environment. She hasn't gone to school in an urban environment. She didn't go to a public school in an urban environment. She didn't grow up in the black community. There are certain things culturally that you grew up with, like music videos, things like even like old school nostalgic things that I can say to no matter what part of the country you're from. If you grew up in an urban community, not specifically if you're black, but if you grew up in an urban community, but also if you are black, you can relate to certain things, and we wouldn't even know each other. It's like this one organic community that we grew up in. It's like a universal understanding. For example, I can mention a lyric from a Chingy song, or talk about the girl in the blue spandex tights in the Freaka Leak video by Petey Pablo. If someone mentions North Carolina and I just casually say, oh, you know what? I heard that they raised up in North Carolina. You just know what I'm talking about. It's just a reference, you know. It's a thing that even if you aren't listening to hip hop, even if you aren't currently living in an urban community, if you grew up within this culture, you just know. And she didn't. And there are just certain cultural gaps that will just never be cemented. You know, they will never be filled. And it's one of those things you just kind of got to deal with. So there are a ton of pop culture references that I don't talk about with my girlfriend. There are a ton of things that interest me that I don't talk about with my girlfriend. Not because I don't think she'll be interested. And it has more to do with me than her. But I feel like, you know, she just won't be able to relate. You know, and we've had this discussion before. There are certain things that we just don't relate on. For example, I'm not a family person. She is. She's the core of who she is surrounded by family. And there are a lot of things that she brings up in reference to family that I can't relate to. That has nothing to do with race. That has nothing to do with culture. That's just like a way you're raised. You were raised to be a part of a family. You know, family is in the stitching of who she is as a person. It's not in who I am. You know, my friends are my family. You know, I care about my family. I love my family, but my friends are my family because, you know, I spent more time with my friends than my family, and overall in my life, especially as an adult. So that's something that you can't really blame on race, but there are things that you can put on race that you kind of have to consider. For example, we talked about the N-word earlier. Uses of the N-word within her vocabulary or her family's vocabulary, of course, is a taboo topic because, you know, they're not black. But at the same time, there are cultural things on her end as well that I can't relate to. So being in an interracial relationship is definitely challenging. But the toughest part, and I can't speak for her, but I can speak for on my experience. The toughest part about a black man being in an interracial relationship it's the response that you get from black women in particular and men who are quote unquote pro-black and think that you should be with a black woman only. The type of responses and remarks you get from that audience is very, very, for lack of a better word, harsh. A lot of black women, for whatever reason, view a black man being in a relationship with a non-black woman. They view it as being demeaning or disrespectful. And they view it as, hey, I'm not good enough. Now, if a black man comes out his mouth and says from the gate, oh, hey, I'm with this non-black woman because these are things I don't have to deal with. These are things I don't have to worry about. And they pitch it as, hey, being with this person is better than being with a black woman. Then obviously that's wrong because being with anyone isn't better than being with anyone unless it comes to things like abusive relationships or, you know, you're in a parasitic relationship, things like that. Then obviously, then yeah, you know, maybe being with the white woman who doesn't have insecure issues about you being out late at night is better with being with the black woman who does have insecurity issues. But it's not because she's white. It's because she doesn't have insecurity issues, right? She doesn't have trust issues, right? So it should be focused on that. But in most cases, it's not. It's always focused on race, in particular when it's with a black man with a non-black woman. And I can't wait to talk to you all this weekend, this Sunday, about, you know, your experiences, because I've had a lot of people. There's one particular friend of mine, my buddy Will, who he's a black man. He's only dated Asian women. You know, he's been with women of other races. He's been with black women, but he's only really ever dated Asian women. And the type of response he gets within both communities are crazy. It's like, you know, in general, I know a particular person who also dated Asian women. And, you know, the black community didn't really accept it especially because his grandparents are really, really old school. So it was like, hey, you need to keep it, within your race. You need to stay black. And obviously his grandparents grew up in a different time, grew up with a different experience. So that their experience that they have within, races outside of the black race, the African American race, are going to be different from what you and I experience, in our youth. If you're in my age group, what we experience, even if you're not in my age group, even if you're 30 something, 40 something, 50 something, you experienced a different era of race, if you will, a different era of race relations, if you will, in your time growing up than someone who's younger did. Even if the person is 10 years younger than you, even if the person is 20 years younger than you, they have a different opinion or perspective on race than you do. So you can imagine that this particular guy, his grandparents were very old school, and they were like, hey, no, you don't need to be with this Asian woman. She's not for you. She can never relate to you. She can never help support you. Their argument was there's no person who understands the black man's struggle like a black woman. And that's a tough debate to have, because my response to that is, how do you know? And if someone can make a legitimate argument, fine. But I think a lot of times people just say stuff like that because it sounds good. And who's going to argue? You know what I mean? I mean, think about that. Like if I came out and said, there's no woman who can understand the black man's struggle like a black woman. Who's going to argue with me? Because it sounds like such a right thing to say. And, I don't have enough anecdotes or references to say this is right or wrong. But I just want to sit here and say that sometimes, a lot of the older generation, sometimes they just say things and their heart is in the right place. But we need to do a better job of questioning those things to try to kind of like get where their head is at. So this particular friend of mine kind of like had it rough because his family didn't accept his girlfriend. And her family didn't accept him because he was black. And in a lot of Asian communities, being black is like the worst thing, specifically within the Indian community. And I'm not talking Native American. I'm talking Indian, like the subcontinent from India. The Indian culture, the way they view black people is very, very, very low on a totem pole. So the interracial thing, oftentimes, I think in America specifically, is popularized, from being, black versus white, or a black man dating a white woman, or a white man dating a black woman. But there's other beefs going on out there. I knew one particular young lady who was in a relationship with an Indian man, and she never met his family because from the rip, he basically said, oh yeah, they wouldn't like you. They wouldn't accept you. Know nothing about you. Don't care what your career is. The fact that you're not an Indian woman is really, really bad. The Asian culture in general is, and I know a lot of people don't think Indians are being Asia, but it is in Asia. But the Asian, so I'm talking about Indians as well, but the Asian culture in general, they're really, really strict about relationships and marriages and things like that in the first place. So you can only imagine, obviously you take an Asian background, someone from Asia, they come over here, they migrate to the U.S. for whatever reason, whether, it be a better lifestyle, more financial opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. They come over here, and they don't want to lose their culture. They don't want to abandon their culture. So they keep their culture. But, obviously their kid is going to be, second generation. And, their kid is going to be Americanized. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just a thing that's going to happen. And, obviously they're going to pick up some habits or some interests that maybe their parents disagree with, especially if their parents are traditionalists or otherwise known as old school. And, when a kid comes home, when a daughter or son comes home with a white girlfriend or boyfriend, with a black girlfriend or boyfriend, with a Hispanic boyfriend or girlfriend, they're going to be like, whoa, what is this? So it's not just something that goes on between the, black and white communities. It's something that goes on within different races and cultures as well. So not only do I encourage you all to tune into the video, on Sunday at 7, I want you all to reach out to me. I want to have some of you all on the show next week, to talk about what your experience is. If you have been in a interracial relationship, what have your experiences been? What were the pros? What were the cons? What were some things that you really, really liked in reference to a previous relationship? And how did it compare with being someone within your race? So if you're Hispanic and you only dated within your race, and then you dated an Asian, or you dated a black person, you dated a white person, how did that compare to dating within your race? Definitely tune in, guys, and let me know. Sound off. I would love to hear what your thought processes are. And for all of the black women out there and all of the black men out there who feel like dating outside of the black race is anti-black, I would love for you to sound off as well and let me know what that's about, what that is. I think it has a lot to do with like our history. After years and years and years of not being regarded as human and in most people's eyes, and even by the law, not regarded as a full human, regarded as 3/5 as a human, not being allowed to vote, being treated less than animals, civil rights, et cetera, being told that we're not good enough. I think when a woman or a man sees their racial counterpart, they go outside their race, subconsciously they feel like, well, hey, I guess I'm still not good enough. I think that's something that may be ingrained into our culture. But that has a lot to do with current, like, contemporary insecurity. For me growing up in school, I was not the beautiful swine. I was the ugly duckling. And, I had very, very thick glasses, cause I'm extremely nearsighted. I was short. I had an athletic frame, but I didn't participate in any sport other than track. I was interested in all the nerdy things like debate team and chess team and ROTC, things like that. And it wasn't viewed as like, quote unquote, being black, to some of the things that I wanted to be involved in. And so I was already alienated there, right? But also, a lot of insecurity grew from my childhood that even to this day, I don't think I'm unattractive, but I don't think I'm like super duper attractive. And, the reason for that has a lot to do with, my childhood growing up. And I think a lot of those insecurities carry over specifically from two sources. One, a lot of young women growing up, and they have horrible, kids can be very, very cruel, and they have horrible, childhoods or experiences in school. And then they grow up and they see, especially when they get to college, and they see that the guy that they like someone outside the race, in their mind, they look at it as like, oh, I guess I'm not good enough. Right. Where that couldn't be further from the truth. It's just like, no, I like this person. This person is into what I'm into, or this person gave me an opportunity, or hell, this person approached me before you did. I can't tell you how many, young ladies growing up in high school told me that I would have had a shot with them had I had just approached them. And a lot of the times they ended up with, another guy because that guy was more aggressive and approached them first. So oftentimes it has nothing to do with race, but I think we're taught that it has to be about race. Like there's no other possibility. It has to be about race. And I'm hoping our generation can kind of help break that trend. Race is very, very important. And race should never really be overlooked when it comes to certain topics. But race isn't involved in everything. I remember watching a interview with Morgan Freeman where the question was asked, well, how do we stop talking about, how do we remove the topic of race? How do we stop looking at race? And he said, hey, stop talking about it. I'm going to stop referring to you as a white man. And I'm just going to refer to you as man. And then he said, and you should stop referring to me as a black man and start referring to me as a man. And I think he has a point there. Where I will disagree with him at is obviously if it's a milestone within the black community or any other community for that matter, the Jewish community, Hispanic community, female community in some cases, race should definitely be, or gender should definitely be brought up. Hey, this is the first black man to whatever, or hey, this is the first Asian woman to whatever. I think that's dope. I think that should be called out because it gives a sense of pride for kids growing up in that community. But when it comes to certain things like relationships, or when it comes to certain things like politics, or certain very, very particular and specific things, I think we should leave race out of it. I just don't understand the necessity of having it there. And I blame our previous generation, our parents for that. Our parents and their parents, because of what they went through in this country and because of what they went through when it comes to race relations, because it was so painful in most cases to not only our history, but just to some people in particular of that generation. I don't think they want to let it go. There's a phrase out there. I was talking to my buddy Charles. You all know Charles. And he was telling me that, a popular saying is, if you don't educate yourself about your history, if you don't remember your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Yeah, but Charles said, a part of that saying that no one ever wants to say is if you constantly live in your past, you won't forget it either. You can't move forward. You'll constantly be living in the past. How many of us got out of abusive relationships or got out of a job that was just toxic, but we kept bringing it up in our new relationship or kept bringing it up in our new career or kept bringing it up. We leave one group and find ourselves in another group and we keep constantly bringing up the negative situation that we were in before. Have you even really truly moved on? So there's a difference between not forgetting something like, okay, I remember 50, 60, 70 years ago, how I was viewed and would have been treated, how I would have been viewed and how I would have been treated in this country. Yes, I understand that, we were asked to fight in this country's war, in our country's war, but not at the time. I would say it wasn't our country. And then turn around and come back home and then, not be treated as equal like that. That's effed up. That sucks. Absolutely. And I remember that and I know that I'll never forget that. But at the same time, what does that have to do with my day to day? And I think to our parents' generations who wants to kind of like remind us about race, I think you should remind us about race in reference to educating us, not to make us hate. Educate us like, hey, this is why you need to know this. Don't just inform us of some, a situation or history, whether it's accurate or not. Don't just inform us just so we can hate white people or people from other races and just have a general disdain for them. I was talking to my buddy, Jose, yesterday. And he was telling me that, he went to a school, disciplinary school when he was younger. When I say younger, I mean younger. He was 6 or 7 years old. And this was a disciplinary school, but it was an Islamic themed school. So all of the teachers and instructors and disciplinarians were all Muslim. And in particular, this was the Nation of Islam. So, the same, religious group or religious ideology that, that was popularized by Malcolm X and others. And he said in this school, think about this, a young black man, not man at this point, young black boy, 6 or 7 years old. And he has these, Nation of Islam instructors and teachers telling him that the white man is the devil. The white man is the devil. They're out to get you. They hate you. They don't want to see you succeed. A 6 or 7 year old boy is being taught this. And I think for everybody out there who's listening to this and going, so I don't see a problem with that. You're not going to have an issue. I'm just keeping it real. You're not going to have an issue in the way we see things. We're not going to see eye to eye on this subject. Okay. And I don't care what the race is. You don't tell a kid that young that. You don't tell them that because you're not teaching them. You're not educating them. You're teaching them to hate. Delivery is key. You're not saying, hey, you're black. And because you're black and because you're a minority, there are people out here who don't want you to succeed, the majority of whom which are white. Now, not every white person feels this way. And you may come across your whole life without even experiencing a negative experience with a white person. But don't walk around naive and know that there are people out there who don't want to see you succeed. Some of them even look like you. That's different from saying, hey, the white man is the devil. Don't trust the white man. Don't trust white people. All of them want to see you die. All of them want to see you fail. All of them want to see you locked up and incarcerated. All of them want to see you, back in the fields picking cotton. What? At 6 or 7 years old, some people just can't let it go. I remember talking to a friend of mine. He's older, he's in his 50s. And I remember talking to him about time off, and I was talking to him. See, at his job, he accrues PTO differently from what I accrue. So we were just comparing PTO. And then we got to talking about holidays. So at his job, he only gets 4 holidays off. He gets New Year's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the 4th of July. So days like Labor Day, Memorial Day, he doesn't get those days off. I do. And, I'm talking to him. He doesn't know anything about my job or who owns it, et cetera, but I do. And I'm talking to him and he's like, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I used to work at a job, I used to work in retail and we only had 4 days off too, man. So it was definitely one of those things that I appreciated once I got to my current job. And he said, yeah, man, they won't let us brothers get, more holidays off. The white man ain't, those white folk ain't going to let us do that. I'm kind of looking at him like, what? I didn't say anything because he needs to believe that. He needs to believe that he didn't choose the wrong career. He needs to believe that he's not in the wrong line of work. He needs to believe that there's some entity specifically when it comes to race that's out to get him and doesn't want to give him things so he can succeed. He needs to believe that. I don't need to believe that. I'm willing to accept responsibility that, hey, maybe I'm just in the wrong line of work, or hey, maybe I need to find a job that does give me more days off. But he needs to believe that. But I'm sitting here and thinking like, a white guy owns my business. Like where I work at, a white guy owns it. It's a private company. Like a white guy owns it. But in his reality, he needs to believe that. I brought this up on last week's episode in regards to Saudia Schuler. And I was having a discussion with a young lady, about what Saudia did. And this young lady said, I think what Saudia did was wrong, but I think they're trying to make an example out of her. And I said, well, who's they? And she goes, the white government, white people. As if this is like specific pocket of white government, like this whites only government that has a specific agenda. Like this, and she needs to believe that. And I didn't want to get into a debate with her because internet debates are always futile in my opinion and don't really come up with much. I mean, text wise, like comment, like going back and forth in comments some things are better. Some discussions are better held verbally, but I wanted to tell her, ask her, so wait, so the black people in the government and the other minorities within the government are just not allowed to have an opinion. Like they're just not allowed to have input on this. It's like, oh, hey, this transgression, the legal matters. We're only going to have the white members of government, pass judgment on this. The black people, all you, black politicians and state reps and, legislators, et cetera, you all just continue, business as usual. You guys just continue your work. We only need the white government's opinion on this. She needs to believe that. There are a lot of people who need to believe that. They need to believe that because that's just how their belief system works. And that, that's okay for them. It's not okay for me. I disagree with that mindset. I had a very, very, very close friend of mine said to me that, my opinion on the uses of the N-word, changed his perspective on how I view white people. And I'm like, why? It's like, where does all this come from? And it goes hand in hand with the interracial relationship thing, right? Where it's like, where does this belief system come from and how is it justified? Where it's saying that I can't do this or that I shouldn't do this. Now, if someone comes up with a legitimate argument, fine. We can entertain that argument. We can entertain, we can entertain, educated debate. Fine. That's fine. I remember somebody telling me that, women actually should only be in a monogamous relationship. And men can actually afford to be, it's healthier for them to be with more than one, woman. And he knew more about the subject than I did, so I couldn't really have a discussion with him. But he came with like facts. So even if his like belief system is like archaic or outdated or whatever the case is, he at least came up with like some facts and some studies and some references to support his belief system. So I think if people were coming like, hey, you should date within your race, you should stay within your race. If you come with these like beliefs and you come with, a legitimate argument on why you feel a certain thing should be a certain way, then by all means. But when you come with these anecdotal, just emotional, spiritual arguments to just say, hey, it should be this way. This is how it should be. I don't understand that. I don't. And we're not going to see eye to eye on that issue. So, hey, everybody, sound off. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think when it comes to interracial dating. Let me know what you think on when it comes to certain older people within certain race, their views on race relations, older Indians, older Asians in particular. The way they view dating outside their race, and the way they view, what benefits come with keeping it within your race. So sound off, guys. I can't wait to hear from you all. I'm really looking forward to talking to you all, not only in person. You guys get a kick out of the conversations that we have in person, and it puts a huge smile on my face. But not only in person, but just over the internet too. I try to be as active as I can in responding to all of you comments. So all of you guys' comments. So keep it coming. Keep it coming. In the meantime, everybody, I gotta go. I gotta get ready for work. And keep in mind that the video is via Facebook Live this Sunday, 7 p.m. And I look forward to hearing from all of you in person. And like I mentioned earlier at the top of the episode, there are a lot of people who support me. And one of them is my good friend Joshki. He and his band Glow Stars, check them out online, facebook.com/Glow Stars Band. They actually just released a new single last week. Check those guys out. He reached out to me. He said, he loves the podcast. He is way in Tennessee and supports me out in Tennessee. And he says, hey, God, I want to do some music for you. So that song that you heard at the beginning of the show is produced by him and his band. And he put a lot of effort into it. And he's doing me a solid by telling me that my show deserves an intro. So thank you so much, Joshki. I really appreciate that, man. And check Joshki out. If you really like some music, you want to get a heads up on some different music, definitely check him out. Again, facebook.com/Glow Stars Band. In the meantime, everybody, as always, I'll keep talking if you'll listen. Take care.